they are still very much in the conversation, but they are, in my eyes, not even close to the Lions right now. We're the top of the conference.
It's really great to be joined by two guys who I've known for a really long time. Andrew Siciliano, obviously formerly of NFL Network. He's now got his dream job. He was my red zone boyfriend for so many years, and I miss you, brother. It was great seeing you and Hanson work together.
Damon, it's good to see you. Good to be on. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having us. It was a fun summer doing the Olympics, my third time doing that. NBC is amazing. Always fun to work with them, and it's an honor to do any Olympics.
And the other guy you're looking at is Sam Betesh, who has worn a million different hats in sports TV and in sports radio. He is Andrew's co-host for their Thinking Out Loud podcast, part of the Siciliano show, which I hope you all like and subscribe to on YouTube as well. So there he is, former roommate Sam Betesh, everybody.
Yes, I'm gonna encourage everybody, Damon, to introduce me that way as Damon's roommate. Why not? I think that makes sense. And if I've certainly crashed on Siciliano's couch. It's not quite roommate, but I have done that. But with you, we've got some really interesting stories as roommates, and
you've thrown up on my couch.
Yes, I was going to get there.
Thanks so much for joining me. I thought it was the perfect time of the year to do a halfway report card on what we're looking at in the NFL. Now, obviously, up here in the Bay Area, it is 49ers all the time, and that's where I'd like to start this conversation, because it's been a very up and down first half for a team that has, as big of an expectations as you can attach to a team that is trying to keep its Super Bowl window open. They've been their own worst enemy in many ways. They've had a lot of injury problems, the Ayuk situation, the bad vibes that Mike Silver's been reporting upon. They're like, that's all real. But what is also real is they're still a pretty damn good football team. And coming out of the bye week, they might get a little bit of a cavalry with McCaffrey coming back, Jawan Jennings coming back. On the horizon, we can see Dre Greenlaw for the first time in a long time. So, Siciliano, what do you think about the 49ers and where they stand and where the season might go?
I don't think they are anywhere near the Lions weight class. If you had to replay the NFC Championship game tomorrow, I think it's a knockout. I think the Lions are that much better than them right now, but you don't have to play the NFC Championship game until potentially the end of January. I would go back to something that Sean McVay always says, trying to pump the brakes and caution or lower expectations when players come back from injury. He always says, return to play is not return to performance. And they are getting a lot of those guys back. I'm curious to see how quickly they return to their championship level play. I mean, you can't just because they open the window for McCaffrey doesn't mean he's playing immediately. Number one. Number two, when he does get back, you're not giving him 25 touches, right? You're going to ease him back into it. But does it give you a boost emotionally? Does it give you a boost on the field? Absolutely. Dre Greenlaw is coming back from an Achilles. I mean, he is a vicious sideline to sideline linebacker. Are you going to get that kind of speed and lateral movement immediately? Unlikely, but it's going to be good to have him back. Jawan Jennings, yeah, you need him. Ayuk, yeah, you need him. You need the weapons, because right now there aren't a lot of weapons. The schedule ain't easy, but they are still very much in the conversation. But they are, in my eyes, not even close to the Lions right now or the top of the conference.
Sammy, how's your bilateral Achilles tendonitis doing these days? I know you've long suffered from both.
It's pretty interesting. I actually showed Andrew a couple of weeks ago. I suffered from what I thought was maybe a mid-ankle sprain. I'm not going to go high ankle, but I was throwing the football around in the backyard and tumbled over Levi's slide. And so I have. My foot looked like it belonged on a cadaver, Damon. It was not a good look, and I probably shouldn't be putting weight on it even right now. I will differ here, Damon, from Andrew in regards to what I think about the Niners. I say put the Niners in the NFC Championship game right now. I see them back there. I don't know that they'll host it. But I can see them right back there. And here's why. It's a long season. Yes, this is the midway point, although because of the 17th game, some teams have not even played 8 games to this point. The Niners coming off the bye, I think it's perfect time for a bye week, by the way, at the mid. This is a nice time to have it. I thought it was very early for the Eagles. Those bye weeks a couple of weeks ago just seemed strange. But to me, Niners with and without Christian McCaffrey, it's just a different conversation. what Shanahan's been able to do, that felt like the most unfair addition to a team since Derrick Henry joined the Ravens. Obviously, this was when McCaffrey joined the Niners. With what Shanahan has done with run games, it just felt like a cheat code. And frankly, it sort of has been since then. And of course, on and off the field, what the Niners are with and without McCaffrey, you can see that difference. A couple of other things. I thought what Purdy did in a game without Kittle and Debo and Ayuk, in a game like that, you kind of say, Purdy's always been he's nice. He's keeping everything warm in the oven, but he's not the guy that stirs the drink for the Niners. But I thought that was sort of a Purdy coming out party. That was a game that said a lot. And I also think the Seattle Thursday nighter was another one where you say, all right, when the Niners need it, they've got it. And I still think this team with McCaffrey is going to be the top of the class in the NFC. And I think the Lions still have something to prove there. I think the Packers this week against the Lions will be a real measuring stick for them. So we'll see. And how much do we believe in what the Commanders and Jaden Daniels will do in the postseason? I see the Niners as still the team. I'm willing to believe in them more than I am the Cowboys at this moment in time. And I just think, obviously we saw them head to head, but I think the Niners there. I think they're there, Damon. And I know you've got a lot of, probably more doubts about it, but I see them as there.
Well, to me, they're the best team in the NFC West still. And I know they haven't really separated themselves, but I think that they are going to be a playoff team and they will wear the cloak of the team that no one wants to play, even though they might not be favored in some games and opponents and on the road, however it might turn out. They're going to have something for someone, especially if McCaffrey is back and looking anything like himself. A quarter of what McCaffrey was last year is still probably more than Jordan Mason or Isaac Guerrero could give them. And I think that he unlocks all their red zone headaches if he's able to go. And if you only use him sparingly in the red zone, that might be enough to get him over the top. It really might be. I mean, we know it's a good team, but they're hanging on to that championship window, which, a lot of people will say will have to be re-examined once Purdy is in that $50 million, $60 million quarterback conversation. You guys, you've been covering the NFL for, forever. Andrew, you know how the media works, and you certainly know how the Bay Area media works, Sammy. Brock Purdy, to me, is one of the weirder debates I've seen happen in real time because, there's no element of, oh, this is a great Kurt Warner story. It's like, no, he was Mr. Irrelevant and everybody hates that guy. And there's so much draftism going on. We won't let an incredibly impressive start to his career from a statistical evaluation or a win-loss evaluation. Nothing's going to change my mind. He's still not the right guy for the job. And that just to me is so odd because there's more data points suggesting he can play more than he can't play. Why do you think there's still so much confusion on who Brock Purdy is, not just to the Niners, but in NFL QB hierarchy?
Because what you said, they can't. He got drafted where he got drafted. There are 31 other teams that they had taken him in the bottom. He's been DFL'd. Anybody wishes they had him. Matter of fact, there is a whole new, I don't want to call it draft industry. I don't think anyone is looking at him. And if they have issues, to say, no, we got to go find a better guy. Okay, go. Where are you going to find him? The cost is the cost. It's just how it goes. Okay, it's how you're not going to pay him 30 because of where he got drafted. If they turn their season around, if they are the playoff team that nobody wants to face, and they win a game or two, be happy that you got a free quarterback for 4 years. He was free.
Damon, the question becomes, how much do you like him at $50 million? And I think in the Bay Area, right? I mean, right now, Brock Purdy
the question is, what are you going to find better than him for $50 million? Nothing.
But this is the question the Giants had, right? I mean, the Giants were faced with exactly this, and the Giants were coming off less of a run than Brock Purdy. Now, remember, the Giants did win a playoff game with Daniel Jones. Remember, I mean, it's hard to believe that, but the Giants were not only in the playoffs, but they had beaten the Vikings, a very good Vikings team that season, and then got blown out by the Eagles the next week. But Daniel Jones, at that moment in time, when you're making that decision, felt like exactly what Andrew said. Who are you going to find that's better? And right now we feel like this team is clicking with this particular guy, and we've got him in the building. And again, anytime you're replacing somebody, you're starting at zero. Brock Purdy's done way more than Daniel Jones at this point, right? Not to mention all the Niners still like to talk about the fact that they would have won that NFC championship against the Eagles, even if he had not been knocked out of that game. So they clearly believed in him as a team at that point in time. Damon, the problem is when you stack up the quarterbacks in the league and just count them 1 through 10, is Brock Purdy in that? Is Brock Purdy a 1 through 10 quarterback? And again, the problem is you line up the salaries and it doesn't make sense because we all know that the guy that should be making the most, if you were saying earning what you deserve, Mahomes should be on the top and he's not. Mahomes is not the highest paid quarterback, to Andrew's point, because he's not the guy that got the most recent contract. Exactly. Right. But he's just not the guy that got the most recent contract. This feels like
timing. Life is timing.
Exactly. But how much do you like him at that price? The Eagles have been an interesting case study in regards to going to the Super Bowl with the quarterback not making $50 million and then trying to do it now that he is making $50 million. So that's in front of us to develop and see here. I certainly like him more than Daniel Jones. You like him more. Minnesota's feeling good about themselves right now, but they don't think they're set at quarterback with Sam Darnold. And I understand they've got JJ waiting, and that's just fine. But Purdy feels like, and again, I'll go back to it. That Rams game told me this guy's got it. This guy's got it. And I don't know if it's the fact that he was DFL and Mr. Irrelevant, and that's something that's a chip on his shoulder. The bottom line is in this scheme with that coach, with these playmakers, it's the right recipe.
So, as our resident Eagles fan here in this video, Sam, what do you think of Sirianni? And is this team pointed in the right direction, or will it be Sirianni's last year?
I very much thought Doug Peterson should be the head coach of the Eagles. I've thought this for quite some time. And of course, a run to the Super Bowl tells you, Sam, you're an idiot. But when that move happened, remember, Wentz was shipped out. There was this big Wentz versus Peterson moment happening. Yep. Wentz was gone. At that moment, it felt like, what the hell is going on? How is this happening? Sirianni came in, and I'm sorry, he in essence proved that wrong. To go to the playoffs every year that you're a head coach says that you're doing something right. And this is the Eagles. They've won one Super Bowl, and it wasn't that long ago. This is not a team that expects. Every team expects in a way to be in the Super Bowl. Let's be honest. It's not a team that's in the Super Bowl every season. If you make the playoffs every year as a head coach, I'm sorry, but why are we questioning your resume? I just think you've done
what's happens necessary. With Kyle Shanahan every other week. Every other week, someone's trying to have a referendum on whether he's the right guy for the job.
Sirianni gets it. It's going to come down to how much he gets along with his now $50 million quarterback, as opposed to the guy that wasn't making that. And the stories from last season are that somehow Hurts was not quite trusting Sirianni's chops as an offensive play caller, as an offensive schemist. And that's really what it comes down to. Have they bridged that gap from a leadership standpoint? No more Cox, no more Kelsey. It's a different team. Maybe it's Hurts' team now. And so I see it as TBD based on this season, Damon. And maybe the Cincinnati game says they're for real, but with what Washington's doing, and there's still so much ahead of us. If it unravels, I mean, this is a 10-1 team last season that, as we all know, it was a disaster offensively and defensively. What this team did after beating the Bills in overtime, this team fell apart, as you know, against the Niners, against the Cowboys, the Monday night loss to the Seahawks. Nothing went right, and Baker Mayfield picked them apart in the playoffs. And by the way, did it again this season.
Andrew, you got one of the dream jobs of your life, man. How cool is it that you get to do play-by-play for the Cleveland Browns, a team that you've rooted for your entire life, and now you got the opportunity? The passing of, Jim Donovan, very, very sad, but it's cool that the torch has been passed to you since you grew up loving this team, man. I think it's pretty cool.
Look, last week was really rough, and Jim is a legend. He will always be the voice of the Cleveland Browns, period, full stop. It's been a roller coaster of emotions, and while I am exceedingly happy to be here, the reasons why the call came are right. It was a heartbreaking honor, if there is such a thing. Last week, I am so happy that they got that win for Jim. I think part of it was by Jim, and my partner Nathan Zagura said that, and Kevin Stefanski even intimated that as well. I mean, you had Kyle Hamilton dropping a pick that he makes 50 out of 50 times. One of the top 50 players in football, he dropped a pick. The game's over. He makes that pick. Rashad Bateman lost a deep ball in the sun of the previous possession. Lamar overthrew a wide open Zay Flowers in the end zone of the second quarter. There were a kick, a Dustin Hopkins field goal late in the game, fourth quarter, that doink off the uprights, and it went in. I mean, all these things. Somebody put a great meme of Jim kind of as like the Force ghost, to use Star Wars terminology here.
Yeah. Sports magic Sometimes
You know what I'm saying?
sprinkled.
And we all felt that. And the fact that Kevin and Andrew Berry would then take the game ball immediately after the game to his wife and to his daughter Megan. As for me, I'm happy to be here. It's pretty cool that I get to do it here. And it's great that they won a game this week as well, because, you know, it does feel different. They are still very much 2-6. They own that. 2 teams last year that were 3-6 that made the playoffs. I've seen crazier things.
Yeah. And look, I think we live in an NFL world now where the first 5 weeks of data points are basically garbage. Like, you're not really learning anything about anybody because everyone uses September as their new preseason. So you really don't know until about this time in a season as to what a team might start looking like, and how you close a year is so much more important than how you open a year. And I'll tell you, you know, the change that I think the Browns needed was just, look, I mean, Deshaun was not working. And, you know, no one wants to see anyone lose a job due to injury, but it made a hard choice easier for the Browns because you can't play a guy with a knee injury like that. Insert Jameis Winston. And dude, I don't know about Jameis as a quarterback, but Jameis as a teammate is one of the greatest dudes I think I've ever seen.
Jameis is no different as a starter than he was since the day he walked in the door. He is that same high energy, lovable guy that been since he got here. Now he, though, has the opportunity to get in the huddle, and he has the opportunity to get the ball out quickly and take downfield shots and be the guy that a couple of years ago threw for 5,000 yards. Now, he is certainly more mature. He's learned a lot. I like this guy. I didn't know Jameis really well before I got here. I like him a lot. His teammates like him a lot. This is a different challenge this week. You go from the Ravens playing a lot of man, you have banged up secondary, you had statistically the worst pass defense in football coming in last week, plus Marlon Humphrey and Nate Wiggins were out. It's set up nicely. This week, you get the top scoring defense in the NFL. The Chargers play zone. They make you dink and dunk, right? They make you earn it. This is going to be a different test.
Do you think there's any realm of possibility that Myles Garrett might be the biggest name moved at the deadline?
I don't think he's going anywhere. I just don't. As much as Mike Tannenbaum wants to make up these imaginary deals, 3 number ones and Jahmyr Gibbs. Okay, I mean, heck,
you know
answer the phone
about that, right?
Yeah, I mean, let me say, yeah, that ain't happening. I would be absolutely floored. It ain't happening. And the Nick Chubb one, the Nick Chubb idea, like I read in The Athletic this week, not taking shots at any writer, but I read maybe the Cowboys can trade for Nick Chubb. That ain't happening either.
No, I don't think so. Sammy, what do you think's the biggest name moved at the deadline from any team going anywhere? The marquee trade, because now we get these. I mean, when I was a kid, we didn't get these. Now we get these. The marquee trade will be.
I'd like to see Crosby go to the Lions. I'd like to see Mad Max go to the Lions. I think that would be special. That would be spectacular. I'm sure if we were talking to somebody now within the Raiders organization, they would tell you that is absolutely not happening for many of the same reasons.
Pissed off. Let me just.
You're right. JT would not be happy about that. But much like Andrew just said, I mean, you're talking heart and soul. It's going to be difficult. But if we're playing make believe, to Andrew's point, if you're going to put the Lions in the NFC Championship in the Super Bowl to represent the NFC, I just think Aiden Hutchinson, that's going to have to be replaced. And if not that, maybe a guy who moved at last year's trade deadline would be another interesting one. If the Saints season is really going nowhere, if it's going nowhere at all, that's a good one.
I like that.
Wouldn't you like to see Chase with the Lions? It's not really talked about a lot, and because he's not here again this season, but Chase Young for the Niners, that was stunning last season when it happened. And I always love when a team that is great at a certain position or is known for it then adds more to it. The Lions have that's the hole. Replacing Aiden Hutchinson, no matter what you tell me, is not happening. That is not a by committee type of job. That's a 1-for-1. Can you get me a guy like that? And so if Max is too much the heart and soul, Chase is the guy who just came here for a team that was 2-0 that is obviously now nowhere near that. Doesn't even know what's happening at quarterback and injuries and whatnot. And Spencer Rattler, go for that. Let me see that. I like to see great teams get to exceptional at the trade deadline. That would be a cool one.
Is anything going to stop the undefeated Kansas City Chiefs? It's really weird. They're equal parts undefeated and yet unimpressive at times Although, it's hard to convince people in the world how much defense still matters, and they got a hell of a defense there. But this team really is. They are undefeated and under the radar, even though they're the most high-profile team in the league right now. Like, riddle me that, Batman. How does that happen?
Damon, I can't believe how long it took us to bring up the Chiefs. And by the way, most people that talk football week to week, unless you're in Kansas City or doing a Chiefs podcast, take a while to get to the Chiefs. And this is a team, Damon, that most seasons is not undefeated. Remember, the last couple of seasons, it's what's wrong with the Chiefs. You open up last season with a loss to the Lions. What's wrong with the Chiefs? Pretty tough to find something wrong with the team that is undefeated. Damon, the defense has been spectacular, but the play Mahomes made against the Niners is just such a nice reminder of what Mahomes is on a down season for Patrick Mahomes. Forget that he can be every bit of the escape artist when he needs it. And that 30-plus yard run, which, by the way, shocking about that was the longest run of his NFL career. But
right.
That play, tiptoeing the sideline. And when you go back and look at it, what's also interesting is he's not even tiptoeing. He was well in bounds there. It was so impressive. He always knows what he's doing with his body and be able to have the little flip passes that he does to Kelsey when he needs it and whatnot. Just this team.
When he needs the play that the team needs, he makes it 98.7% of the time. I mean, it's insane how often he rises to the moment.
You think you've got him down. Damon, you know it, right? Being up 10 on the Chiefs in the Super Bowl is the last place you want to be, right?
Twice. Seen it twice.
Twice against the Niners. And by the way, remember, the Eagles were watching Rihanna at halftime. They had just injured Mahomes. Mahomes was injured going into that halftime, by the way. The Eagles were feeling good up 10 in that Super Bowl. So it doesn't happen. And Andrew, also, you remember a season. Remember the Browns-Chiefs game.
You really have to go there?
Right?
Yeah,
no,
he got knocked out, and Chad Henne converted on 4th down. Yeah.
I mean,
they had him out of the game. All they had to do was get the ball back.
Baker season.
Just get Chad Henne off the field, get the ball back. You're going to beat him in the divisional round in Arrowhead, but you never got the ball back.
So let's wrap up with this. Give me the no one sees it coming Super Bowl. Forget about the favorites. Forget about the thing. What might happen in this second half that gives us actually Commanders Steelers? I wonder what odds I could get on that right now. Russell Wilson, dude, he's back. And Jaden Daniels is having the best rookie quarterback season I think we've seen since Patrick Mahomes, his first year as a starter. What do you think of that? Or take one out and put a new team in. What do you think?
All right. Washington and the Chargers. But I don't, and I'm going to see the Chargers in person this week. They do have the number one scoring defense, as I said. They're getting Quentin Johnston back, and they're getting DJ Chark likely back this week as well. They really only have one playmaker on the perimeter, and that's Ladd McConkey, who looked great this past week, caught a 60-yard touchdown. They hadn't really targeted him downfield. They got him downfield last week. Justin Herbert is playing lights out. He hasn't thrown a pick since week 2. It's his only pick of the season. The run game isn't necessarily there yet. I don't know that they honestly have enough talent to do it. And I think the Browns beat him this week. All that said, I think they have some momentum going, and Herbert is playing lights out. So look out for them. And yes, I love the Commanders. What I love is that they're running the football. It's not the old Cliff Kingsbury throw it 50 times a game offense. They're as good a running team as there is in the NFL. Their defense, though, is severely lacking, but Jaden's got something.
Cook for me, Sammy. Give me your odd job Super Bowl. What do you got?
How about Rams? And here's why. Rams are getting healthy, Damon. I know you're scared in the Bay Area of the Rams. That McVay and Shanahan thing has not, has been really interesting in the playoffs. And even though Shanahan owns McVay, that NFC Championship game obviously went McVay's way.
It's very lopsided until you talk about the game that counted the most.
The most.
John
right?
Mathis, though, isn't walking through that door.
But healthy Rams, and again, we saw what they did last Thursday against Minnesota. Healthy Rams, but here's also why, Damon. They could host a playoff game. That division is so winnable still. The NFC West is so logged up. No one would be shocked if Niners, Cardinals, Rams, or Seahawks at this point won that division. So I'll say healthy Rams who will get to host a playoff game if they win that division. Rams representing the NFC. And in the AFC, I mean, this would be stunning. This is a little too ridiculous. I could say Colts on sort of a magic run that the Browns went on last season with Flacco. Could it happen? Could the Colts have enough? Could the Colts have enough? All right. So how about if we're going stunning and we want to take a team that could have the bye out of it. So I'm taking both of those 2 seeds out of both conferences. I'll say Colts Rams. I'll say the Colts decide the Steichen move turns out right. And with what they can do, if Jonathan Taylor is healthy with what they're doing, I just, that with what Pittman's doing, maybe they find a new triplets there with Flacco, and that becomes a magical run that they make. Kind of like when Harbaugh led the Colts to the AFC Championship.
Captain comeback, baby. That's you don't get that kind of goulash anywhere, but from Sammy
right.
Goulash.
There you go.
Siciliano, welcome to the dark side here on YouTube. It's great that you guys got your page up and your podcast together. I'm so glad that we were able to put this together. Great to see you. Thanks for coming on, and let's do this again before the year's over. All right?
Please.
Absolutely.
Good to see you guys. There it is. Andrew Siciliano, Sam Betesh. Follow them on all your social medias. Make sure you've downloaded the podcast. You're going to want it. Thinking Out Loud Siciliano Show is where you follow them both and subscribe to that on YouTube. Mazel, boys. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Tune into the Damon Bruce Show live on YouTube every weekday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific.